5, 50, 5,000 years, are you doing that from the perspective of being a good ancestor?
A lot of people in the world are looking for something, and are looking for something that we have.
Being connected to the land, being connected to our ancestors, and being connected to each other.
Indigenous communities need to be telling Indigenous stories.
If we can do that here, then the rest of the world is a piece of cake.
This is Haka Works Talks.
Well, kia ora koutou. You're listening to Haka Works Talks. I'm your host, Carl Burrows, the founder of Haka Works. Over the last 15 years, Haka Works has been helping transform teams and leaders with tools from Maori culture, helping them create what we like to call a culture of bravery. We hold regular podcasts where we are joined by a special guest to explore how we can apply the knowledge of our ancestors to help us find purpose, values, and connection in modern life and business. As the saying goes, ko te kai o te rangatira he kōrero, conversation is the food of chiefs. And today we have Mr. Dan Walker, Global Chair of Indigenous ERG at Microsoft. Dan is a New Zealander. He is Maori. He is also a director, trustee on a number of boards, including his tribal board, Ngāti Ruanui, where he helped spearhead the Tū Nui Code program, encouraging Maori to consider taking up a career in tech. I'll be talking to Dan today about the place for Maori and Indigenous knowledge within the IT industry and what has an organisation like Microsoft to gain from engaging with Maori. Nō reira, tēnei miha te kia o koutou, kia koe te manuhiri, te maunga titoa hea ao te waka i te tuakana, tēnā koe. Kia ora, Dan.
Tēnā koe te rangatira, kia koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui kia koutou.
Kia ora, hey Dan, I was just listening to Debbie Packer, Ngārua, doing her kōrero in Parliament. Did you have a chance to hear her today?
I'm so proud of her, man. She's done so well, and she's going to represent for Maori. She's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it was a beautiful kōrero, wasn't it? And just got to the part actually where she was talking about her time at Stanford University and when the young rangatahi came over. I know you're involved in that, so really interested to learn, listen to you about what happened during that time. But what I thought we'd do first is just to start off with, if we can get you to talk about who you are, where you're from, and maybe just as a way to start using pipiha as the foundation for that.
Okay, tēnā koutou katoa. E ki ai tōku tupuna a turi ariki nui, e kore au e ngaro he kakono e rui mai rangi ātea, tia i mauri ora. Ko au te waka ko taranaki te maunga ko Ngāti Ruanui tōku iwi, ko āmoa pōtiki o ku apu, ko taipori he nui me mere marae, oku marae, ko tanga hoi te awa, ko Dan te whenua woka ahau. E te taha o tōku papa, e uri wake e ki au no ngā kaipuki Wikitoria. E te taha o tōku māma, e uri wake e ki au no Ngāti Ruanui, Ngārue Enerangi, Maniapoto, Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairoa, Tūhaurangi. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Ka pai, Dan. Hey Dan, I just, for most people here listening, they might not know what pipiha is, but so just a quick explanation. It's just a way that we connect ourselves to who we are, connect ourselves to the land, connect ourselves to our ancestors and our community. And just, just as really, perhaps not to translate, but just, take a few of those things that you spoke about in Maori and just give us a bit more of a background about who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, ka pai. So, kia ora everyone. My ancestral mountain, my ancestor is Te Maunga Titoia, as was mentioned by Carl, also known as Taranaki, and also goes by Maunga Tapu and many other names as well. My mountain is my he kaiwhakatūrākio, is my protector, my guide, and my place of replenishment for my spirit. My awa, Tangohui, is where my people sustain my people for many years through the generations for 600 years plus. And there's many stories that and blessings and waiata that include that awa, that river, and links me through my ancestors into that place. My marae, or one of my marae is Taupurihe Nui, which is where my granddad Te Puhi Hikuroa is buried, and as well as his wahine, his wife, my great nana, Maraia Wakarangangi Williams, and then all of my wānau are from there as well, and that marae, that urupa, Taupurihe Nui. But also Mere is my marae as well, Te Aroha and Aotearoa from around those, around South Taranaki, and linked me into those beautiful places down there. My mum moved down to Christchurch with the trade training scheme in the 70s, and I was lucky to be raised by beautiful parents. Noel Walker from, I see Kaipuki Wikitoria, but his mum is from Ireland, his dad is from Scotland, and I'm still connecting through my roots, but I'm very proud of those roots as well. I'm a proud Pākehā. And then through to who you see here today, Dan Walker, a father of 3 amazing children, Josh Tamakura, Tyler Ruanui, and Maya Te Winaka, my mum's name, and then also a husband and a proud Kiwi, a proud New Zealander. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora, Dan. Thanks for that introduction. And I just, a couple of things to reflect on for me is, one, you're from Taranaki, and I have Ngāti Ruanui connections as well. And one of the reasons why is Deb is because she's represented so well the region recently. Now the Maori MP, Maori Party MP, of course, down in Parliament. Also having dual heritage, something that is quite familiar for Maori now. It's not just you and me anymore. There's a lot of people, and I say that because there's in the past people had the choice really to say they weren't Maori, if they wanted to, because we're lighter, we're whiter skin, we have Pākehā names, European names. It's easy for us to move into the world of European world that dominated New Zealand back at the time. But it was something that I chose, not to do. It was for me, it was a journey that I went on to make sure I was my full self in being a Maori and being a person. And there was a similar journey for yourself growing up in Christchurch, I understand.
Oh, definitely. Actually, I grew up disconnected to who I was, and Nana was Nana Chick, or her. That's who we call her, but her full name is Te Rautohia Taranaki. She's an amazing matriarch of the Hikuroa whānau down in South Taranaki. But she was of that era that to ensure that her kids did well, she sent them off to a normal school. They didn't have kura kaupapa or kohanga reo back then, so they lost their language, and that was how they were raised. But I actually look at their generation, even though they didn't have the language, they still had a very Maori upbringing in terms of a really close connection to the marae, close connection to the wānau, and all of the amazing Pātea Māori Club are my uncles and aunties, and I'm privileged to be connected to people who are amazing leaders for me, who are just revere and still hold the Maori of Ngāti Ruanui today. That's where I'm really lucky, and I know others aren't, but I had the benefit of being able to connect back into my iwi and still connect with knowledge holders who had sacrificed a lot to hold that knowledge and were willing to give it to me. And not all of it, obviously. I've still got a lot to learn, but I'm still a tepe. But I'm learning lots from amazing kaumātua and kuia of Ngāti Ruanui.
Okay. So really interested in your journey into tech, because just thinking about your mihi, your pepeha, and you're explaining where you're from and your connection to these places, and you're sharing a Maori worldview. And when I think about the corporate world, when I think about big tech, it seems such a contrast to how you look at the world. And so just interested in how these two different worlds of yours have managed to come together. So tell us about your journey into the world of tech.
Well, actually, it started off with me leaving high school without any qualifications. I didn't really connect very well with education in the early stages or academia, and part of that was my own sort of feelings of inadequacy and not really understanding where my strengths lie. And so I fell into retail actually, which was, a lot of people sort of maybe not look down on it, but they didn't see it as the aspirational kind of employment. And it was at Dick Smith Electronics. I don't know if you remember that one, Iho, but it was like an electronics chain. And the good thing about retail is that if you had some promise and you worked hard, then they would invest in you. And I was privileged enough to go through their management training programs. And by the age of 21, even though I had no qualifications, I was made a store manager. And I had 18 staff, and it was a $10 million store. You don't normally get that kind of stuff at such a young age in other areas. And so I was developing people and helping them to get their own stores, and doing the hiring and firing and stuff. So it's a lot to it's kind of like a crash course in business. And so through that, I rose through the ranks. So I was lucky enough to end up as national commercial manager at Dick Smith. And that's when I shifted to Auckland, and I brought Michelle, my wahine, up to Auckland. It was only ever going to be a short-term thing, but we sort of moved up here and loved it and really enjoyed our time. And then I got headhunted by Noel Leeming, another technology retailer here, and I was there, loved that role as well as national commercial sales manager. Made my name there, and then Samsung headhunted me to be national sales manager. So I was 28 and I was national sales manager of Samsung. It was an amazing opportunity and amazing role. I still got mates there today, and I pay acknowledgements to them. And then from there, I got a touch of this is what tech is, because they when I joined there, they'd done something like 70 phones for the whole year, the previous year. And then I joined and the S2 launched about a month after I started. And then it just went boom, and then S3 and then S4. And then, it was an amazing time at Samsung, and by the time I left, they were doing $1 billion and a huge organization. Went from there into Dell Technologies. And it was there where I was sort of starting to sort of feel like this disconnection to Maori in terms of just not seeing us reflected. I was one of the very few Maori at Samsung, again, same at Dell Technologies, and it wasn't the fact, there was really amazing people there, but it's just there's a lot of reasons for it actually in terms of why Maori are not in tech. But part of it is also ourselves. We never really sent our people into tech. It was never an aspiration for us. It was always other areas. And so coming into Microsoft, it was the first organization really. I've made my name on the commercial side of things, and I'm good at that. It's actually, I know it's one of my gifts in terms of being able to create win-win opportunities for my clients, my business that I work for, and myself. And that's the good thing about that is I am good at that, and I can now leverage that as a platform to bring benefits for Maori and the communities that I serve, and Aotearoa katoa. So while there's very few Maori, it's definitely my kaupapa, man, to get more Maori into tech, and then also Indigenous globally, because we're not reflected in Indigenous in tech as well. So it's a opportunity.
Okay. Hey, just going back to what you were saying, we haven't really encouraged our people, and I probably want to come back to this later in terms of how we can do this. I think back in the 50s when we all came out of rural areas and there was a big drive towards education, so we had a lot of people who are teachers. In the 80s, 70s, 80s, with the treaty was coming to the fore and the claims, we had a lot of lawyers coming through then. Commercial people were in demand after that and now. But there's been a push now into STEM. They call it STEM, don't they? Science, technology. I don't know what E stands for. M for maths.
Engineering. Yeah, okay. And maths. That's right.
Yeah, and it's really exciting for me because it's like now you need these skills to create things. And we've finally got to a position where we're not having to up-educate or fight for our rights, but we're creating. It's time for us to create, and we're coming from our own perspective. And I want to come back to you now because I just love what you say when you say being Maori is my superpower, because not many people get to bring that to work, especially in the corporate world. We expected to hide a lot of ourselves, leave a lot of ourselves behind at home, and especially when you're a minority culture and you have to fit in with a bigger culture. You sort of say, you just play along, you tend to play along, and to get ahead, you want to be part of the bigger culture. You don't want to turn up and show your Maori side, but it seems for you it's become a competitive advantage, I suppose.
I totally believe in this, Ihoa, and I think it's about really tapping into that. For when I say Maori, I think Indigenous around the world, if they embrace that part of them, the world's looking for it at the moment. It's actually, and tech's just one example, but if I look at tech, its birthplace is science, so it's all about facts and figures, and it's based on rational sort of formats. But what they're saying it now is that they need more soul. They're wanting that, and the biggest organizations in the world, the 5 biggest organizations in the world now, are tech companies. So how do we actually change the narrative, change the focus around from just being commercially driven to this new space of going on that journey of understanding that we're all connected, not just connected to each other, but we're connected to our environment, our sea, our mountains, our rivers. We're connected to us, the unknown, unseen as well. We're connected to the trees, and so when we start putting ourselves above that, that's when these issues start coming in, and we treat commercial focus as, rather than that being an outcome of living well, it becomes the purpose. And this is where a lot of organizations are focused. That the purpose is the share price. The purpose is we've got to get bigger numbers, but that's putting up other things above what's important in life. So Indigenous, I always say tech is good for Maori, but Maori is good for tech, because our values is something that can actually help lead the way in some of these new thinking. Because I'll say one more thing. When we think about where things like AI, all these new technologies and things like that, the issue that we've got is that they do adopt the values of the environment that they're embedded in. So if there are no values, which there are no set values for the digital world, and a lot of people are writing about this, our global CEO Satya Nadella talks about this too, then it adopts norms, and the norms are the profit motive, basically. So how do we change that up and ensure that we actually put other things forward as important as that as well?
Oh boy. Well, it's exciting times because just the little amount of time I spent in San Francisco with some of the the companies over there, and there's there's a lot of younger people coming through now who demand that their work or place of work or their career or their life is more reflective of the values that they live. And I think it seems to be a big change that is starting to happen. And the drive towards individualism, that's been happening over the centuries, that sort of resulted in this disconnection and this drive for personal profit, to the detriment of others. I mean, it's not completely, of course, we all live in communities, and there are laws, but you relied on the government to come up with these laws to set the boundaries, and you were able to operate them and exploit those boundaries as much as possible to make profit. But that doesn't work anymore, because governments are becoming less effective at doing that. Companies are getting too powerful, and we've got to find a way to bring values back into organizations. And I think the good thing about it is that when you start to go to work, you feel like you're actually making a contribution to the world. If you've got a higher purpose within your organization that aligns with that, when you go to work, you feel like it's something that you contribute yourself to.
Yeah, kia ora, bro. Totally agree.
So tell me about a little bit more. I just want to dig deeper on this one. You have touched on it, in terms of connection, but what are some of the values that you think that organizations outside of, just going back again to what you were talking about in terms of your whakapapa and just painting that picture and with pepeha, and then imagining a tech world that just seems so far apart. And I just want to tease out, what value that corporates see within the Maori world or the Indigenous world.
Well, we know that diversity in thought provides there's actual benefit for the business, not just financially, but in terms of their culture, in terms of how they turn up and how they speak to market and all that kind of thing. So that's already well known, and that's in the research. Inclusivity is the next step, and there's not many organizations that are good at the inclusion part, but they're seeing when they can actually create good allyship within that organization, then inclusivity is the result. And so what we see in those companies that are starting to look for diverse opinions and embracing different perspectives, they're actually improving their culture as a result. But they also have to go through those hard steps in the way of making that happen. I think from the values piece, where we know now that in my research, sorry, bro, my watch is going off. We know now that with the profit motive, the commercial focus, it's not the neoliberalism. A lot of people are just saying that that's not the way that they want to live. So offering different perspectives and different ways of being is actually, I think, a competitive advantage for an organization. And kudos to Microsoft. They're on that journey and saying, yep, we're keen to look at this and have that discussion too. And there are a lot of other organizations out there doing it as well.
Okay. So just to summarize, it sounds like diversity and inclusion is really important, because you get a diversity of ideas that, and then including those ideas, you create a sense of inclusivity, which brings other people within the organization. And then there's the leadership aspect as well, isn't there, around values and what we bring as values, which you touched on before, around connection to environment and get connection to our communities.
Aye. And also I look at Satya as the leader of Microsoft, and he's when he came to New Zealand last year, we did a proper pōwhiri for him. And he said, man, when you come to New Zealand, because you get properly welcomed, as opposed to other places he might go around the world. He really connects and resonates with our culture, which is is something that I think is another piece of why Maori culture is special. And I think back to as well to Samsung when I was there, when we became an official subsidiary of Samsung in New Zealand. The thing they wanted to do was a haka, and one of my mates who was head of retail at the time, and we're still mates, Logan. He is saying, now that was one of my proudest moments of my life, and we were just talking about that the other day. So our culture has ways when we do it well, it resonates and connects from a heart perspective and a puku perspective rather than just the head.
Yeah, good point. No, I think so. It's people see that instinctively and know something's going on. They might not necessarily have the words to describe what they're feeling when they see haka, but they know something's going on deeper inside of them that they connect. We help them connect to, that they forget.
Totally, bro.
So just on the flip side of that is, there's a lot of concern about protecting Indigenous knowledge or other people exploiting it when they don't really have the right or they're using it in wrong ways. Is that an issue for you? Do you see that as an issue within Microsoft or within other organizations? And if so, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think that's something we've constantly got to think about, and we've got to be respectful. Microsoft can, just like any big corporate, not even a big New Zealand company, can steamroll community opinions, Indigenous opinions, and then again, we can just be, it can be another form of colonization, and therefore we've got to be respectful and we've got to be considerate of how we do things. Microsoft can ruin things if we rush into what our Indigenous relationships, for instance.
Yeah.
We're big as well, so we can step on people and do things in the wrong way. So my counsel is making sure that we are willing to build relationships first. One of the bro Apawhai talks about 1,000 cups of tea. That's the kind of stuff that we need before we start coming out saying this is the solution. This is because Maori are Indigenous people, but Maori is definitely, from personal experience, have had that for years. Big organizations, normally the government, but now corporates are sort of saying, hey, we can solve your problems. We know the answers, and but they haven't even built the relationship, so they cause more problems than they do solving when they think that they're actually making gains. So
I think the problem
about
is
relationship first.
Yeah, just jumping in, I think the problem is, people, there's an element of arrogance, isn't it? And that comes from being so successful, especially with a company like Microsoft, and not really listening and taking the time to, not say you're doing this, but this is where the potential could come for problems. I'm not really listening, and also taking an idea and going, hey, this is great, and applying it in ways which it wasn't intended. That can be damaging to the original knowledge. It could be detrimental to the culture if people aren't careful. And I suppose, like you're saying, it's how do you resolve that? It's taking your time. It's talking, so making sure that people understand and are respectful. It's not just a matter of rolling it forward.
And also, doing things of authenticity. I've been really impressed with Microsoft, bro, in terms of, they're willing to be challenged, they're willing to be to have the conversation, and that they'll support you if they know it's right. I remember when we launched Indigenous at Microsoft, my dad said, that's capitalizing on Black Lives Matter. We did get this all organized before all that stuff happened. But then when COVID happened, we sort of pulled back. But obviously Black Lives Matter is very important and has caused many organizations, including Microsoft, to relook at themselves. But from Indigenous and Microsoft perspective, it's a journey. it's a long-term journey. Personally, it's something I'm incredibly proud of, and it will be a legacy thing. Microsoft's been around for longer than I've been alive, and they may be here for longer, until my grandkids are born and stuff. So
maybe not as long as Ngāti.
No way, bro. No. We've been here forever. But yeah, the fact that this Indigenous global diversity pillar has been created, that's a legacy, and I'm really proud of that Microsoft has taken that brave step of moving forward with that.
Well, tell us about the Indigenous ERG. What does it mean, and how did it come about?
Yep. So it's a global diversity pillar, and once you're sort of the way Microsoft set up, we've got a diversity pillar, a Maori and Pacifica one here in New Zealand, which is doing some awesome stuff. And I don't know if you've seen some of it, but we created a Maori Minecraft. One of the awesome wahine here, Anne Taylor, created a Te Reo Māori AI.
Wow.
And we've done, I've got so many different things we've done that we're doing porphyry for new starters. We've got people wanting to do Māori welcomes for the new Xbox launch and stuff like that, the global one. And so we're definitely doing some great things already, and globally we're doing some great things. But the Indigenous ERG is about how do we engage with Indigenous internally. So how do we change our culture to make Microsoft an Indigenous employer of choice, which is a long way away from where they are. Like Maori look at Microsoft as a big beast that they're like, I'll never get a job there. And that's so it's on both sides in terms of we haven't really focused on tech, but also tech hasn't focused on us. And then so how do we change our culture and make it a more acceptable place? Because a lot of Indigenous have come into Microsoft and like gone, shucks, this isn't my my gig. They're too commercially driven. There's no sort of, it's all kind of face value or lip service to Maori, but no real commitment. So they're keen to go on that journey. And then also, how do we engage and partner with community is a big goal of the CRG. And then the last one is how do we put an Indigenous lens in front of our software and technology so that it's created in a way that Indigenous want to engage with it. And I think about macrons, for instance. Microsoft Office didn't have macrons as a part of the New Zealand keyboard. You have to download a separate keyboard. The Maori keyboard, you have to download, you have to install it, you have to switch keyboards, you have to have the language pack installed. It's a mission. So one of the awesome wahine here, Ali, connected with one of the global guys in Office, and he's like, oh yeah, we can do that. We'll put that into the New Zealand keyboard. So that's now coming into the standard Office. So when you think about putting your inclusive kind of hat on, or accessible, it just makes it more accessible for our whānau to interact with Te Reo Māori on Microsoft products. And Microsoft products are everywhere. They permeate into pretty much 95% of the world. So that means we can get our language into those places too, which is awesome.
No, it shows that somebody's thinking about us, and then it shows that you actually care enough to do something about it.
Tika.
Which makes a huge difference.
And that's where I'm thinking this Indigenous ERG, we've got more allies than we have Indigenous. Microsoft there's less than 2% Maori in tech in New Zealand, and that's the same globally for Microsoft. There's less than 2% Indigenous in Microsoft globally. So it's definitely something where if we can make our tools more accessible for Indigenous, they will start looking at Microsoft as a place to work at.
A good point. I'm going to turn to the other side, but just before I do, I'd like to. I follow your CEO quite a lot on LinkedIn and things, and just he carries the values around with him. He displays them in terms of leadership.
He does.
Yeah, and if in terms of an authentic leader, he's one of the people that I put up on a pedestal, for myself. So he's really quite impressive, and great to see that it's coming down to through to your level, right through the organisation. And also when we work with Microsoft over here in the UK, some of the people after our presentation, people would come up to us and talk about Satya and the values that he espouses through action. How much the organisation has changed as a result of that. So, just coming back to the other side now is as well as organisations encouraging Maori to work in tech or providing an environment where it's easier. How do we get our own people engaged, encouraged to be in tech?
I think the journey has begun. We need to actually see our whānau in tech. So we need to have our aunties and uncles, that are at the marae also, involved in tech. We need to see success reflected, not just success in sports, which is vast with Maori and Pacifica, but also seeing it in some of these technology places as well. That's a big one. Then you'll start seeing Maori self-certifying, I guess, to saying, oh yep, well they can do it, so I can do it. So that's one thing. The other one is the mums and dads have got to say, hey, we think this is a way where you can go. So making sure that, because Maori, they do, ako mātua and kuia, they play a big role in our lives. So if they're pushing us down that way, then we'll go. And this is the reason why a lot of the hotshots went into law, a lot of them went into education, into social services, government, and we've got some amazing leaders in there, man. But a lot of our kaumātua and kuia pushed them that way because they saw the sediments coming down the pipe, and let's get ready for that. Let's get them in there. But now, that we actually need to be taking on that entrepreneurial spirit. We need to be taking on the innovation, and then because Maori, if you start connecting in, you connect more to your culture and to your people and to your hapu, your iwi. As you grow, so does your iwi, and we see that. We see that with people like Debbie, our Wanaunga, when she gets into MP, we all feel like a win for that because it's one of our own, making it the first Ngāti Ruanui in government. And certainly I felt it, that responsibility of myself being a role model, and making sure that for Maori, that they know, if I can make it, a dropout who didn't even pass fifth form, or I don't know what you call it, year
11, is it?
Whatever. Year 11, yeah. And I can make it into Microsoft because of hard work ethic, but also starting to work out where my strengths lie. It took me a while, in my early years it was tough, but slowly but surely I've found where my strengths lie and where I can start adding value. And I know now that being in that authentic place that says being proud of who I am as a Maori and a Pākehā, I can start adding value in different ways for all sorts of people. And there's beautiful outcomes from that. So,
I just want to jump in there and say I've heard this quite a few times now on these podcasts. It's really knowing who you are. It's taking the time to know yourself and what you value and what you believe in, and that I think comes from understanding where you come from.
Yeah. Well, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've come from, eh? It's definitely a big thing for me, because I got that role at Dick Smith, and I thought I was all good, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm doing well. And then you hit a bump in the road, or maybe you lose your job, or you get a written warning, or you get a really bad, performance review, and then it knocks you, and you're like, oh, fuck, what's happening here? Why does this affect me so much? And it's because you don't have that internal po that you can return to give you your sustenance and give you your replenishment. And a lot of people rely on external, people to give them validation for who they are. But once you really know who you are as a Maori, you're so lucky, man. Like that for me anyway, it's my inner strength that allows me to be able to step into places that I know I never used to be able to go, and that's why I started with my, our ancestor Turi, Ariki Nui, and when he said e kore au e ngaro he kākono au e urui mai rangiatea. I'll never be lost in this world because I'm a seed cast forth from rangiatea, and that's my catch cry, man. It's my anthem, and it guides me, and it knows that I belong anywhere I am because I'm a seed from rangiatea, and I'm a part of so many amazing people that have sacrificed but also loved and helped me to get here to where I am today.
Thanks, Dan. That's a really beautiful way of putting it, and it's a real privilege to hear it from you. Hey, just on that then, you've been working with a whole bunch of young people with the Tūnui Code from Ngāti Rua Nui, and I understand taking them to all sorts of places away from where they're from, bringing them back, obviously. Tell us a bit about that, and how does it work? How did it come about?
Oh, I do. I will say, bro, that was Debbie. I have to pay homage to her, bro. She was the one. It was her brainchild. Yep, I was on the board, deputy chair at the time, but she smashed it and just made it happen, and the whole board just loved her concept and supported her to do that. And when it's our kids, it's just a beautiful thing to see them go out there and be exposed to the world. But as I said before, because they're connected to who they are, they bring all those benefits back to their marae or their whānau, their hapu and their iwi. And we've seen that time and time again. When the first rōpū came back, they did a presentation to the iwi, and that packed out the whole Ngāti Rua Nui Runanga offices, and all of our kaumātua and kui are just loving it and so proud. And we're still proud of them. And what we're seeing as well is that the years as they go on, they come in and mentor the new ones who come through. And I just pay homage to Debbie, man. She went out and found the relationships. She connected with government. She hustled and found money in different areas. And now, and that's what I think. If I look at that example of how I look at that and how I can use Microsoft as a platform to bring benefits for the communities that I serve. Again, not just Maori, but Aotearoa. And I definitely see that in what she achieved with Tūnui Code.
Awesome. All right. I'd love to have a chat to her about that sometime in the future. But Dan, tell us about your future. What are your plans? Have you got any goals you want to share with us?
I actually, I look at, I've been asked that, I was like, well, what's your 5-year plan? And bro, I start from, I want to be the best dad I can be, and the best husband, the best brother, best whānau member I can be, while growing in my my business successes and my growth in Te Ao Māori as well. But where it all comes from is making sure that I give to those who are important to me, which is definitely my whānau. Yeah. So I don't want to be one of those cats who's very successful but never sees his kids, and goes global, but then his marae is pohara and gets no benefits, and he's never there, and that this just not, it's not my MO. It's not the way I would like to live at all. So my big, I don't really have sort of written plan or goal. I don't really do that. I'm more around values, and I'm values driven, bro. So if I look at the values that drive me, it's about being there for my whānau when they need me. Not just when I say whānau, it's my whānau. All of my cousins and aunties, uncles, mum, dad, and everyone. So that in itself, bro, is really, it's quite a big job. and when you're really connected into them and you care for them, it's a lot of work, but it's also, it's mahi rangatira for me. Yeah. And what I found, man, is once I start looking at that as my purpose, the rest of it takes care of itself. It's how it's turned out anyway over the last 10 years. The work stuff has just blossomed, and my academic stuff. I went back to university after dropping out, and realized, the reason why I didn't really resonate with that was some of it was my own stuff, some of it was a racist education system. But I've sort of realized, actually, I've worked it all out, man. I know that it's actually their job to make me pass. So if I don't understand something now, I raise it and I just say, hey, you don't make sense. And I've found as well that people can talk kaka sometimes, man. They just, to make themselves sound flash, and eventually you kind of work it. Once you get to the knuckle of it, you realize, you're just trying to say this when you're trying to flash it up. So I got my master's, got my MBA, and then got my master's in advanced leadership, and I'll get my doctorate one day. That's in my destiny, bro, because I know I can do it, and I've when I think about my values, I think I'll be able to help more people by achieving that. But if I can achieve kaumātua status, some of my kaumātua, like Tūranga Pito, Koko Sandy, all of the amazing kaumātua in Ngāti Ruanui who helped Deb to get where she is, that Ngāpari, that these are people who, when I ask for them to come up for a pōwhiri for a new role or something, they come up from Taranaki, and that means everything to me, because if I don't start from a cultural perspective, the whole health and safety thing, well, this is for my cultural health and safety, and it's always worked for me.
I'm just really impressed how you managed to do all this and keep connected so well. Because you talk about your whānau, but I mean that's extended to your hapu and your iwi as well. And I'm mindful also. There's a whole lot of people, a whole lot of us out there who may be in corporate world or in tech who haven't really had the opportunity to connect back. And for various reasons, perhaps they've never wanted to, or they just, the world was a different place back then. They didn't want to share with the world their Maori side. But I think the world's changing, and I just wonder if there's ways that we can encourage people to go home and contribute. And of course, it's not a one-way thing at all. It's a two-way thing where there's a lot to gain for ourselves from being back. With our communities. But I'm really impressed with how you do it. Just any thoughts on how you'd encourage other people to do it?
Well, it's I liken my connection to my iwi is like pounamu. So the more you interact with your pounamu, the more beautiful it becomes. You know, it shines, and then colors come that you don't normally see. You can hold it up to the light, and you know, by touching it and by interacting with it, and by connecting with it, you see more beauty, and that's what happens with your iwi as well. You know, the more you connect into your iwi, the more you start connecting into your marae, the more beautiful your life becomes. And I got told by, well, my kaumātua anyway have told me, you know, if you wanna grow, Dan, you've got to go in to go out. And so I didn't understand that. Now I was like, okay, and I got told this ages ago. But what I think they meant was, you know, that the deeper you go into your iwi, the deeper you go into anything te ao Māori, the more you can do, the more your life flourishes, and you know, kia pua wai, waka tō te kākano kia pua wai. You know, so I think that's what they meant, and that's certainly for me as I've gotten deeper into my marae. You know, in terms of service, you know, service by leadership by service. I found that I became a better person, a better dad, a better husband, a better friend, and you know, a better employee, all that kind of stuff as well. So, you know, while it looks like it's sort of connected and stuff like that, and that's all part of it, but it's actually, the benefits been hugely for me in terms of what I've got back from it, in terms of, you know, the benefits and the blessings.
Ka pai. Ka pai, Dan. Well, ka mutu I konei, and just want to say, you know, you're a great example, really, of somebody that's, well, you know, in a lot of ways a modern person, and growing up in Christchurch, dual heritage. You know, took the opportunity to take on Maori culture as your superpower, and just making a difference to the world. And really love the opportunity to talk to you today. And thanks so much for sharing.
Hey, ngā mihi, bro, and I just want to say massive respect to you, bro, and what you do, and how you really take our culture to the world. It's a kaupapa matua, man. I'm really just impressed with what you do, and your wahine, and how you brought your whole whānau in. I really love that, man. So just well done, and yeah, big mihi to you and your ancestors who have helped you to get to where you are today.
Ka pai. Ka pai, konei.